is E-Man Booze. And we're going to do something very unique tonight. We're going to kill two birds with one stone. And what do I mean by that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to review this here Noah's Mill bourbon. Very fine bourbon. And also we're going to learn about how do you taste bourbon? How do you enjoy bourbon? So with that said, let's start with a little bit of the mechanics. First thing I like to do whenever I enjoy bourbon is to use the right glass. Now this here glass that you always see me use is called a Glencairn whiskey glass. And that's spelled Glencairn. And you can get it online at Amazon or wherever. Okay? It's made in Scotland. They came out with it not too long ago. I want to say like the early 90s or so. And it's specifically designed for distillers and people who really want to taste and smell or nose their whiskeys. So a lot of bourbon distillers use it. A lot of the Scotch distillers use it. Heck, even tequila distillers use it. Rum distillers use it. You can use it for everything. And you always see me use it. I'm not going to deviate from using it because I love it as a tasting glass for any kind of liquor. Alright, now with that said, what makes the glass so nice? First of all, real heavy, thick bottom. You can get it in your hands like this. You can swirl it around. Okay, you can hold on to it. It ain't going nowhere. Right? You can do all that. You got a real nice crystal design that comes up into a tulip shape. And what that does is helps to concentrate the aromas that come up to the top of the glass for when you're nosing the product. Okay? Also, you can see the legs real well. When you swirl the whiskey in here and you hold it up to the light, depending on the alcohol content and how fast they drip down the sides, you can learn a lot about a whiskey from that. So, good glass is very important in exploring whiskeys, any kind of whiskeys. Alright, now, another thing that you might want to think about is putting a bottle of good spring water beside you. Because sometimes you get whiskeys that are real strong. And when you get a real strong whiskey and it's too strong for you, you might need to add a little bit of water to it to cut it down to make it suit your taste better. Okay, now, about water, let's talk a little bit about water. When you put it in here, okay, you want to make sure you get it all mixed through real well. That's very important. And sometimes you only want to use a teeny bit of water, always at room temperature, by the way. You might need to use a spoon to knock just a little bit in there. Okay? So that's that. Now, when you nose the whiskey, after you're swirling it up, and let me stop here. I'm going too damn fast. First thing is that I recommend is when you pour your whiskey in your glass, smell it. And then set it down for 5 to 10 minutes. And before you even take a sip, let it open up a little bit. Let the air get in there. Let it open up, okay? You're going to notice that your whiskey is going to change. If you sat here with just this and you just smelled it for a half an hour and never took a sip, you're going to smell different things the whole half an hour. Every 5 minutes it could change on you, depending on the whiskey, okay? So this one here has been sitting out open for about 7 to 10 minutes now. And I haven't quite smelled it yet because I want to talk about the product itself. This is Noah's Mill. This is a bourbon. This is a bourbon that is near cask strength. When they say near cask strength, not quite full cask strength, they got it at 114.3 proof, which is 57.15% alcohol. And they put it out that way because they feel that it's the best way for you to taste what they're trying to make here. And they think that this is the flavor profile that they want you to have, of course. Now, for some people, it may be too hot. You may need to cut it down. And when you do that also, if you add a little bit of water, sometimes it changes the aroma, it changes the nose, and it can change the taste on you too. That's another story. But in any event, Noah's Mill is made by Kentucky Bourbon Distillers. They've been around a long time. They're also known as the Willett Distillery, and they made bourbon for many years until the early 80s when they stopped making bourbon, okay? But since that time, they've been sourcing bourbon from other distillers, and what they do is they blend and make their bottlings from what they purchase from the other distillers, okay? So what makes this one more unique than a lot of other bourbons out there on the market is this bourbon here uses 3 or 4 different mash bills, or 3 or 4 different casks that have different mash bills. What a mash bill is a mash bill is a percentage of corn, malted barley, and either rye or wheat that goes into the bourbon, okay? All bourbon by law must be at least 51% corn, okay? And then every bourbon producer throws some malted barley in there because malt has an enzyme in it that helps the corn and the rye or the wheat to ferment, okay? It helps to take all that sugar and turn it into alcohol, okay? So, but the distilleries, the way they're set up to they all can use corn and malt, but usually they're only set up for 3 grains. So most distillers pick either rye or wheat. Now what they do here is they take different casks, and this is a small batch bourbon, meaning who knows, because some small batch is 900 barrels, but they claim that their small batch is less than 20 barrels, okay? And what they're doing is they're taking some barrels that have a higher rye content, some barrels that have a low or no rye content, some barrels that have a higher wheat content, okay? And they're blending them all together. And what that does, it gives you a really unique taste and a really unique profile. So with that said, let's get into this and swirl it around a little bit and nose it and see what we find here. I'm smelling a great amount of vanilla. That comes out of the char from the barrels, inside of the barrels. I'm getting some oak. I'm getting some nuts. I'm getting a little bit of honey. A little bit of resin, not too much. I'm getting a bright tone, like a fruit tone of some sort, maybe a berry note, okay? Bourbons, when they get to 6 to 8 years of age, they start producing these esters, these compounds that evolve only when the bourbon starts maturing to that age level, okay? And these are clearly evident in this bourbon. So I can tell you right now from the nose, it's kind of magical. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it too. Let's take a taste. Now, what we're going to do first, because this is high proof, we're going to take a little taste, and then we're going to see how we like it. If we got to cut it down, we'll cut it down. Oh, I forgot. Stop. When you're smelling bourbon, you have to keep your mouth open. Do not do this. Do this. When you keep your mouth open, you smell better. You can smell a lot more than you can actually taste. But remember, when you're nosing any kind of spirit, make sure you keep your mouth open. And you can take little teeny bursts of smells, or you can take a big sniff, but whatever doesn't knock out your smeller. Oh, I'm getting all kind of stuff here now. This stuff's changing like by the minute. Let's take a little bit of taste. Woo! It's a big boy right there. I gotta catch my breath. Not big enough to make my eyes water, but it's a big boy. Now let me say this. I can't talk for a minute. I gotta let the flavor even out here. Man, what a finish. It just goes and goes. Nice long finish. Okay, so what I'm tasting here is a lot of classic bourbon flavors with a definite note of rye. You can taste the rye, just like the grain. If you ever had some rye bread, you know how that tastes with the little seeds, the caraway seeds in it. Same thing here. You can pick up the rye notes. All right. You definitely pick up the natural sweetness of the corn. You pick some honey tones up. You definitely get some wood notes and what they call some resinous notes. Like think of like wood resins or pine resin. You kind of know what that smells like. You get some of those notes. Maybe a little hint of black licorice on the back note. But it's very, very, very well balanced. And I'm curious to just put just a trickle of water in here and see how it changes the nose and how maybe it opens up the flavor. Or maybe don't open up the flavor, but we're going to find out. Now, I don't have too much in here, so I got to be real judicious with the water. I got just about, as you can see here, I got maybe not even a quarter teaspoon. We're going to put just a little bit in here, and you got to swirl it through really well. You got to put some muscle into it, which I ain't got much of, but you got to put some muscle into it, and you got to get it moving in the glass. Nose it up, see if it changes, and it will change a little bit. What it's doing for me, it's giving me a little bit of a sweeter nose. It smells just a little bit sweeter. Let's try it again on a taste and see what we got here. You hear me making that kind of like slurping noise? What that is when I have the liquid in my mouth, I'm opening my lips just a little bit and drawing in some air. And what that does is it opens up the bourbon inside the mouth just like when you open up the bourbon in the glass. So let me tell you, this one's got me a little baffled because it's so complex I can't even pick up all the complexities out of it. And it's the kind of bourbon that you need to sit down with a small amount and take little sips and do it for a long period of time and just appreciate all the complexities that it has to offer. This thing here is a thinking man's bourbon. It's a thinking man's bourbon, that's for sure. I love it. I love the taste of it. I love the balance. It's not overly oaky. It's not overly sweet. It's not overly rye flavored. It's just it's in the sweet spot for me. I like the spot that it's in. I can't wait to continue to see how it grows and changes in the glass. And so once again, glassware, good glassware, a little bit of water if you need it, a good bottle of bourbon, a little bit of time, a little bit of paying attention to what you're doing, and you will enjoy your bourbon as much as I do. On that note, I highly recommend Noah's Mill Bourbon. You can pick it up at your store if you're lucky enough to find it. It's in the $45 to $60 range depending on who's selling it and what they're charging for it. Okay, so try it out. Definitely a highly recommended bourbon. And get yourself some good glassware and enjoy it. And it's a learning experience. Remember, nothing's wrong in the beginning when you start. You just got to learn. And the more you do it, like anything else, the more you do it, the more you learn, and the more you start noticing all these little subtle things going on in the background. Oh, a little bit of cinnamon note just hit me in the back of the mouth. See? Another thing. You get spices in these things too. So, with that said, I'm E-Man Booze. Look forward to hearing from you. You can shoot me an email, emanbooze@gmail.com. You certainly can like my video if you'd like to. That'd be great too. Don't be afraid to throw some comments up there. Whatever we can do to keep bringing spirits to you, we'd like to do. And on that note, I say, bye you all.